Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Sanhedrin Daf Pei Daled. Housekeeping note: I have no idea what I'm doing Thursday. How's that for a housekeeping note? Okay, I'll keep you posted. Also, Thursday's bought in half. So, what day is it today? Tuesday. Wednesday's pretty long. Thursday's regular. Friday's pretty regular. Oh wow, we're gonna be very far behind. Okay, great. So we are right now on the very bottom of Pei Gimel Amud Beis, and what we've been doing over the last amud and a half is picking apart a brisa and finding Mari Makomos. The brisa that we had read was found at the top of the page, which spoke about the Elohein Shebemisa. We spoke about all of these various cases of Tevel and Kohen, Tamesh Achal Truma Tahora, v'chule, v'chule. We looked at all those Mari Makomos. The last part of that brisa said, Aval, there are differences in the following areas. That's what we're picking up right now, two lines from the bottom on Pei Gimel Amud Beis, and the Mishnah says, "Aval orel onein and yoshev arbe azhara." If an orel were to be involved in the avoda, if an onein, who is again, he's achroi for burying someone, he's pater for mitzvos saseh. There's a machlokas rishonim as to whether or not you're allowed to do mitzvos at that time. Let's say, okay, I'm pater. A woman's also patura from tefillin. If she wants to put on tzitzis, if she wants to put on lulav and esrog. So am I allowed to put them on if I so desire? So we actually paskin like the Baalei Tosfos that you're not allowed to do that. So much so, listen to this. This is a chiddush dekadin. If a person buries a family member, now they're not an onain anymore, but there are still hours of sunlight left in the day, no tefillin. When you woke up, it pattered the whole day, which is a fascinating svar. Not all the Rishonim agree. The Rambam, I believe, disagrees. So I think it's a machlokes. I don't know if it's a machlokes between Svardim and Ashkenaz and Lamaisa. I don't know. I know by my brother's kura, I didn't put on tefillin that day at all. He was buried before sunset. Okay, let's go through these cases. An Orel minol, and how do we know that an Orel is not going to trigger anything massive? There's no chiyuv misa, but there's only an azhara. Amr Chizda, davar zeh mitoras Moshe ben lo lamadnu. We didn't learn this from Moshe. We learned it from Yechezkel ben Buzi. What is it that we learned? Called ben nechar orel leiv. The pasuk says in Yechezkel, any child of a nechar, of a goy, orel leiv, who has an uncircumcised heart, orel basar, lo yavo el mikdashim. And by the way, I didn't even get to say this yesterday. I didn't know this yesterday, but David was correct. What is the case of the orel who is a kohen? So Rashi at the top of the page says, like David said yesterday, this is a Gemara, I believe it's in Perek Rabbi Elazar Demila, that if a woman has multiple children who died from their bris, then the subsequent child, I can't remember if it's two or three. Does anybody know? I think that goes to the Machlokes or Shem Ben Gamliel and the Chachamim about what a chazaka is. But either way, he was the third or fourth child, whatever it was, and he was pater from bris milah. Says, what are you supposed to do? You're pa'onis rachmana patre. Halachically, you're not allowed to get a bris at that point. Today, these things don't really happen because our medical equipment and our surgeries are so sophisticated. Bleeding control in an OR is so impressive, so impressive. So I can't imagine that this exists as a real matzav, that a family can't move forward with the bris because of hemophilia.
I was going to say, have you ever had a call for a bris?
Well, you don't usually know if a child is a hemophiliac. The parents don't matter because these are not all of the bleeding disorders are genetic. The only way that you have a remez is when the baby gets like a heel prick if they can't stop the bleeding, but the heel is so thick, like it's not a good raya that one way. I have had babies, statistically the rates are 0.4% of babies have bleeding of significance. I mean, it's very rare. It happens. It's a surgery after all, but it's just very rare. But anyways, those things are few and far between, whatever the statistics are in people with bleeding disorders. What is it, 0.1%, 1 in 1,000 people? I don't know. It's a very low number. So that's how we know from the pasuk in Yechezkel. Onain minalon. How do we know that an onain, a person who's still caring for the mace before they bury the mace, how do we know? Because the pasuk says in regards to a kohen gadol, umin hamikdash lo yetze v'lo yechalel es mikdash elokov. We know that a kohen is not allowed to become tamei. Ha'acher shelo yatzachila. But if there is a person who does not go out, so chilal, so that's a problem, which means he is really not allowed to do the avoda under these circumstances, which means that if he does the avoda as an onin, based on the diuk in the pasuk, l'chora, he'd be chayiv midoraisa. He's only chayiv an azhara, only in quotes. He's just not chayiv misa. The pasuk that we just read, so we see the word yechalel, and now this is our third blot in a row, I think that, or maybe can't even remember anymore, two or three, that speaks about this. Why don't we learn that you are chayiv misa as an onin, and learn the word yechalel from our pasuk over to the pasuk of yechalaluhu by truma, malahalan b'misa afkan b'misa. So perhaps the brisa has a contender. And here we could say that it would be the case that you're chayiv misa even for just doing the avoda as an onein. Says the Gemara, you cannot say that because michsiv bei begufei, the pasuk itself that we were just learning doesn't say the lav of a Kohen Hedjot at all. It's a diuk. Remember on the third line it says, "Oh, we read the pasuk and then we said ha'acher shelo yatsa chilel." Oh, that by the regular Hedjot Kohen, he's the one who hasn't. But that's only a diuk. And michlala ka'asi, it was only inferred. And habadavar haba min klal. That's something that comes out of the klal. It's not the klal itself. It's inferred. V'chol davar shaba min klal ain't done in a sobik zera shava. That's a side technical problem. Is that we don't learn out a gzera shava when the halachic aspects of the pasuk are only inferred and not explicit. I did not know this principle. Did we learn it before? I don't. I don't know. I don't recall seeing this. But the rules of Gzeira Shava don't apply, even if the pasuk itself has the word Yechalel. But if the diuk of the pasuk is the ikar of what we're trying to learn, you cannot use that for Gzeira Shava. Therefore, Chilul doesn't work. What about Yoshev? What if a person does the avoda sitting? I got this shaila 1,000 times. What if the sandik miyusha, the sandik me'umar, excuse me, holding the baby during the brachos has to sit? So Ladina, they're allowed to sit. We do call them the sandik me'umar. It's appropriate to stand, but sometimes they're infirm, they're older, they have Parkinson's, whatever the case may be. So that's mutter. But here by the avoda Yoshev minolan that you're going to be chayav alav, it's an azhara. So says the Gemara 8-9 lines down. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Kra. Kivo bachar Hashem Elokecha mikol shvatecha la'amod l'shares. So state in the pasuk. This pasuk can be found in Sefer Dvarim. So this is a din deoraisa, which means that since you're supposed to be la'amod l'shares, if you're yoshev u'mishares, that's allowed. You violated the pasuk in Chumash. You're not allowed to do that, and therefore you have to stand for the avodah. Le'amida b'chartiv, I chose you, I selected you so that you would stand when you do the avodah. Below the yeshiva. We have this by mitzvos also that it's appropriate to stand when we perform mitzvos. Is it le'ikufa? There are discussions in poskim. I sit down for kiddush on Friday night. That's a din deoraisa. What if I'm sitting and other people are standing? What if I'm standing and other people are sitting? All of these different shilas. What about a balmum? So the brisa that we learned on Pei Gimel Amud Aleph, when this brisa was quoted, said that a balmum was shaykh to have a machlokas tanaim. Rabbi Omer b'mi. So Rabbi says that if a Kohen who was a balmum does the avoda, so he's chayiv misa. V'chachamim omer b'azhar. The chachamim say no, it's aser, but it's an isur d'oraisa. It's not a chiyuv misa. So let's say he doesn't have an eye, right? So then under those circumstances, what's the din? So that's machlokas tanaim. My time at the Rebbe. Why does Rebbe hold that if a Baal Mum does the avoda, that he's shaykh by a din of misa? That's a very sharp din. Tichsiv, the pasuk says, Ach el haparoches lo yavo. I'll finish reading the pasuk for you. Ach el haparoches lo yavo ve'el mizbech lo yigash. To the paroches you should not approach. To the mizbech you should not approach. Ki mumbo, because you have a blemish. You should not make profane my holy places. So that pasuk has in it the words, has the word in it, v'lo yechalel. So what do you think the Gemara is going to do with the word yechalel? The same thing is done every other time. Maybe we should say, maybe we should say that because the pasuk by Balmum says the word yechalel, and because the pasuk by Truma says ki yechalaluhu, so therefore the shorashim are the same, the root words are the same, and therefore we should say that just like by a balmum you're chayiv misa, that just like by Truma you're chayiv misa, so too by a balmum you're chayiv misa. That's the svara of Rebbe. Rebbe says you're chayiv misa. Why? Because of chilel. from the psukim by Truma back to the psukim of Balmum. Just like we asked yesterday. Once you have Yechalel and Yechalel, why don't we say that we should learn the halachos of Balmum from the world of Nosar, Malahalan Bikares, Afkan Bikares? Maybe we should say that the halacha is really different and it's a kasha on Rebbe, because if we have a way of learning the pasuk of Yechalel by Zaro, by Balmum, excuse me, and we are now going to learn it from Nosar. Well, what's the din by Nosar? Malahalan b'kares afkan b'kares. The halachos would change. Rebbe wanted to say that it's Chayiv Misa, and he had made a Gzeir Shav of Yechalel from the world of Truma back to the world of Balmum. But if we say like the Gemara's Havamina that we should learn from Nosar, then the pasuk on the Balmum shouldn't be Misa, but rather it should be Kares. Says the Gemara, no mistabra mitruma havalel. Rebbe says it's better that I should learn Balmum from the world of Truma. Shekain psul haguf mi psul haguf, because they are a common denominator. The Truma case is where he's puzzle, that's a psul in the guf. And the Balmum is also a psul in the guf. So because the commonality between the world of Balmum and the world of Truma is psul haguf, so we're good to go. That makes sense. Remember that when we do these Gzeir Shabbos, they're not all, heebie-jeebie, like we don't understand them. There has to be a svara that connects them. So here the Gemara says that it makes more sense to learn Balmum from the world of Truma, where there's a Psul Haguf, as opposed to Nosar. Ask the Gemara why. Adarabba. We're just about halfway down on Pei Dalet and Aleph, heading to the end of the parak. Adarabba, minosar havalele me'elav shekain. There is a similarity between Nosar and the world of Balmum. What are the commonalities between Nosar and Balmum? Shekain Kodesh. Both of them have to do with the Beis Hamikdash. Truma doesn't have to do with the Beis Hamikdash. Pinim, it's inside the Beis Hamikdash. Truma is not inside the Beis Hamikdash, but Nosar and Balmum, that's where their Isurim take place. And Pigul and Nosar also only take place in the Beis Hamikdash. So I could understand why we would want to say Nosar. So says the Gemara, Ella Balmum. This is a girsa change, as you can see on the side in the Hagos V'Tzionim in the name of the Maharshal. It says Yesh Lahosif, quote, Balmum Sheshimesh. So we take out the words mitame and we change it to Balmum Sheshimesh. Ella Balmum Sheshimesh, if you have a person who's blemished and he did the avoda, Gamar Psul Haguf mi Psul Haguf. He really should learn it from Truma because of that commonality. You're right, there are other commonalities by Nosar, but the Gemara doesn't like that. Kodesh Pnim Pnigul V'Nosar mi Kodesh Pnim Pigul V'Nosar. But other cases other than this, with that actually could be learned from Nosar. All of this is Rebbe. One way or the other, Rebbe holds that there is a chiyuv misa if a Balmum does the avoda. Now, the Rabbanan were of the opinion that it was only an azhara. So says the Gemara of Rabbanan, why do the rabbis hold that a Balmum who does an avoda is only going to be be'azhara? So says the Gemara, because the pasuk says bo. This is pulled out of context. V'shamru es mishmarti v'lo yisu alav chet umesu vo ki echalaluhu ani Hashem mekadasham umesu vo v'lo bebalmum. He says that who are the ones who are going to die? That's a regular Kohen who does the avoda, betuma, or whatever other case it's done in. But if the person is a Balmum, he will not be chayiv misa, he will be chayiv be'azhara. That brings us to the next two dots where, again, we're still talking about that brisa from Pei Gimel Amud Aleph, and there the brisa said, Hazid b'me'ila. If I'm a Kohen and I go in to do the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash and I intentionally misappropriate things in the Beis Hamikdash to the point that I violate me'ila, Rabbi Omer b'misa v'chachamim Omer be'azhara. So similar party lines as we saw in the previous machlokes about Balmum, that Rebbe holds that a person who's mezid b'me'ila is going to be chayiv misa, and the chachamim hold, no, it's only going to be an azhara. Same structure. My time with the Rebbe. Why does the Rebbe hold that when it comes to the world of Hezid b'me'ila that you are chayiv misa? Because says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Abo, Gamar chet chet mitruma. One pasuk of chet is nefesh kisimol mal. That's the first chet, and the second lashon of chet is what we saw, what we saw earlier. V'shamru es mishmarti v'lo yisu alav chet. So malahalan b'misav kan b'misa. Rabbi's klor. He has a gzeir shava from the world of me'ila back to the world of Vishamru es mishmarti. There too, it also says the word chet, and that's over there. It's talking about misa. So it's actually quite similar to chilel, but just a different word, but it's the same pasuk. V'rabbanon. Why do the rabbis hold that me'ila is only a din of azhara? Says the Gemara, Barabanan Amre, they hold Amar Kra bo velo b'meila. They also hold bo that pasuk that we have over here by the pasuk speaks about meila, and there it says bo, but not b'meila. So that's a little bit of a harder one for me to follow, but that's what it says. That we have a drasha, the Rabbanan say that when you're doing meila, bo yamusu, only when you do that will you die, but with meila you will not die. You just get a lot. That brings us to the two dots, about 2/3 of the way down, maybe a drop more on Pei Dalet and Aleph. Says the Gemara, Zar Sheshimesh B'Mikdash. If we have a non-Kohen who does the avoda in the Beis HaMikdash, here we will see a three-way machlokas tanoim in regards to this sugya, and that will bring us to the end of the parak with a little bit of analysis. Tanya, the Brisa writes, Rabbi Shmuel Omer, Ne'emar kan v'hazar hakarev yumas. One pasuk says that the stranger, the non-Kohen who does the avoda, he's karev, he brings a korban, he should die. Ne'emar lahalan kol hakarev hakarev el mishkan Hashem yamus. Slightly different word. We have yumas and yamus. That doesn't bother Rabbi Shmuel. Malahalan bidei shamayim, afkan bidei shamayim. So he holds that if a person does if a zar is mishamesh b'mikdash, he does the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. So Rabbi Shmuel is of the opinion that they have a din of misa b'dei shamayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will arrange for things to be taken care of. Rabbi Akiva Omer, I disagree. Ne'emar kan v'hazar hakarev yumas. V'ne'emar lahalan v'anoviahu o cholem hachalom hahu yumas. Lahalan b'skila, avkan b'skila. What is the Gzeir Shava here? This is talking about a pasuk that can be found in Dvarim. And the pasuk says that if you have a navi and he's doing inappropriate things as a navi, he should be killed beskila. So therefore, just like we have the word yumas by a navi sheker, so too vazar karev yumas, same exact word, and therefore the punishment is skila. So again, Rabbi Shmuel holds that a zar that is mishamesh b'mikdash, he holds that there is misa b'dei shamayim, and according to Rabbi Akiva, it's skila. Those are divergent tracks, and let's see the third one. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer, Malahalan bechenek, Avkan bechenek. He disagrees because the case of the Navi should be bechenek, and therefore in our case it should also be bechenek stam. They have a machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri in regards to the case of the Navi as to what the punishment should be. Rabbi Akiva holds it's skila. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds that it's chenek. So the Gemara says, "B'mai kamiflige Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Akiva." Rabbi Shmuel, who holds that it's misa b'dei shamayim, Rabbi Akiva holds that it's going to be skila. What are they arguing about? Says the Gemara, the problem is, I foreshadowed this just a drop. First, at the very long line, 6 lines from the bottom of the page, Rabbi Akiva Savar, done in yumas mi yumas, vein done in yumas mi yamus. Because the Gzeir Shavas that were being compared in the camp of Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, they're not similar enough. Rabbi Shmuel's Gzeir Shava does not work for Rabbi Akiva because yamus and yumas are not similar enough, which is pretty amazing. I mean, we've seen some poetic license taken in regards to Gzeir Shavas.
I'm shocked.
Shocked, shocked. Also,
Absolutely the same show.
it's Pasha, the same shoresh. He's taking it to the next level. Is that the conjugation of the word has to align. That I mean, I don't. If someone knows Shas Beherchev, you have to look at every Rabbi Akiva. Is he thematic? Yeah, yeah. That's a great question. But it's striking to me that yamus and yumas, they also have very similar meanings. You will die and you shall die. Again, I don't know if I'm translating them right. He will be killed. He will die. He will be dead. No, no, no. So that's why Rabbi Akiva couldn't handle the sheet of Rabbi Shmuel. So he defaulted to the next pasuk that says yamus, and that was a case of skila. They weren't arguing about the punishment per se. They were arguing about the accuracy of the Gzeir Shava. Rabbi Shmuel Savar done in hedyot mi hedyot ve'ain done in hedyot mi navi. So he says, Rabbi Akiva, I couldn't even hear you talking. How could you possibly say what you want? I wanted to compare one hedyot to another. My two psukim did that. But you, Rabbi Akiva, were done in hedyot mi navi. You learned from a navi. How could you learn from a navi who's chayiv skila back to a person who's a zar sheshimish betuma? Those people are not the same strata. You have a navi and a non-kohen, and you're saying that we can learn from one to. I understand this. It's not, you're comparing people who are not in the same group. Not everybody's equal. You have people who are on different levels. You might want to be a Navi, but you're not a Navi. Rabbi Akiva is like, hold on. Rabbi Shmuel, you're upset that I'm making a comparison between a Navi and a Hedyot? What kind of Navi am I talking about? I'm talking about a Navi who's a Rasha Mirusha. He's being mediach. He's making people do avodah zarah. Rabbi Akiva, kevan sheidiach ein loch hejod gadol mizeh. He's not a real navi. He's a regular guy. He's obviously not living up to his potential. So Rabbi Akiva holds that even though really you're right, Rabbi Shmuel, Be'etzem, you're right that we shouldn't compare a Navi and a Hedjot. But this Navi is not really a Navi, he's a Hedjot. He's a Mediach. He's trying to get people to do Avodah Zarah. So that's why the Gemara says, right, in the name of Rabbi Akiva, that Rabbi Akiva can tolerate this machlokes. He can tolerate the difference between the Navi and the Hedjot, because at the end of the day, this Navi is really nothing more than a Hedjot. And then Rabbi Akiva, Kevin Sheidiach in Hedjot, sorry. Then the Gemara says 4 lines from the bottom. But my kamiflage Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Remember, we had pointed out that Rabbi Akiva held that by this Navi who was Mediach, he gets skila. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri held that he got chenek. So what is that machlokas about? But my kamiflage Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Plugta Rabbi Shimon v'Rabbanan. They're arguing about the machlokas of Rabbi Shimon and the Rabbanan. The Tanya, the Bride writes, Navi Sheidiach b'skila Rabbi Shimon over b'chenek. That's black on white. So really, Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion that they get skila. So that's the opinion of the Tanakam and the Brisa, 3 lines from the bottom of the parak. And according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, who says that you get chenek, that's a sheet of Rabbi Shimon in the Brisa, 3 lines from the bottom. So they're party lined. Ay ha'onan than Rabbi Akiva omer b'chenek. So now we seem to have diverging opinions within the same Tana. The Rabbi Akiva, in our case, seemed to hold skila. The Brisa reflected that. But there's another place, another Brisa, where Rabbi Akiva says no, that the Navi Shehidiach, and therefore the Zar Sheshimesh, Betuma, that they get chenek, and they don't get skila. So Rabbi Akiva, you're soser yourself. So says the Gemara, Trei Tanae ve'aliba de Rabbi Akiva. There are 2 Tanaim, Talmidim, who don't understand Rabbi Akiva the same way. Masnis in our Mishnah is Rabbi Shimon, ve'aliba de Rabbi Akiva, and that's chenek. And Brisa, Rabbanan ve'aliba de Rabbi Akiva. The Brisa, where it says that we are talking about the Brisa that says that we are talking about skila, that's aliba de Rabbi Akiva as well. Hadron Allah Edu Hin and Israf and Baruch Hashem. We finished the 9th parak of Maseches Sanhedrin, going into parak ha'asiri Edu Hein hanechnokin. We're almost at parak chelek. That's going to be the next parak, and we will understand very little of what we read when we get to that parak. And I'm excited about that. I've never really learned it in full. I've learned pieces over the years. It's quoted all the time, an oft-quoted piece of Gemara. Let's start with the next parak. Remember, over the last many blot, we have a fundamental machlokas between the Rabbanon and Reb Shimon. The Rabbanon hold that the Seder Hadvarim of the most severe capital punishment to the least is skila sreifa hereg chenek. And according to Reb Shimon, it's sreifa skila chenek hereg. He switches things around a little bit, where each pair, skila sreifa hereg chenek, he inverts them. So it's sreifa skila, chenek hereg. So he inverts all of them. So Elohena nechnakin. Now we're talking about the 4th one, top of Pei Daled and Mebezet, the new parak of Elohena nechnakin. If a person hits their parents, the gonev nefesh misrael, a person who kidnaps another person, the zaken mamre al pi bezdin, someone who's a zaken mamre, we'll speak about this in the Gemara. The navi sheker also gets nechnakin. I actually misspoke previously. The previous person of the navi that we spoke about with Rabbi Akiva was not a navi sheker, it was navi hamediach. He was putting people off the derech. If a person is intimate with a woman who's married to another man, this we'll have to discuss in the Gemara. The people who were the zomimin, the Edim zomimin, so they lied, of a bas kohen. So we would have thought they get sreifa, because bas kohen shazinsa, she should get sreifa. They get a different punishment. Uvo Allah. And when they were trying to get her to get a punishment and the man she was intimate with. And this we'll see there are a number of answers to, and quite a complicated piece of Gemara. It's a little bit complicated. Most you must. Everyone in Chumash knows that if a person hits their father or their mother, they shall surely die. This is a good klal gadol. This klal gadol is back on Daf Nun Beis, and we'll see it again later in the Masechta, that in general, when the Torah speaks of a misa, and it's stam, there's no frame of reference, we typically assume that is chenek. So that is answer number 1, is based on the pasuk that a makev avi v'imo is going to be chayev chenek. Ema adikati le miktal. Maybe I should say that the only time that a child is going to be begeder chenek is when he's make avi v'imo to the point of death. Maybe the person would have to kill their parents in order to be chayav chenek. Says the Gemara, Sal kadai toch kotal? You think that what the pasuk is talking about is actual killing of one's parents, patricide, matricide? No. Chad, if you killed a regular person, what would the punishment be? Besayif. That would be a bigger punishment. The aviv bechenek? That's a lower punishment. Remember, skilas reifa, hereg chenek. So says the Gemara that if what you're saying is that the pasuk of Makeh Aviv Imo is talking about when the parent dies, then we're left with a paradox that if I killed a regular person, I'd be chayev sayif, and if a person killed their parent, they'd be chayev a lower punishment of chenek, even though the father has a higher stature relative to the child. Says the Gemara, well, your question's givaldik hanicha leman amar chenek kal. I understand your question if you say chenek is kal. But ela leman amar chenek chamor, if you want to say that chenek is more chamor, your question is not a valid question at all, and therefore perhaps it really is the case that the pasuk is talking about where one has to kill their father. Ma'ikal meimar. How then would you understand the Gemara's question, which is why don't we say that Makeh Aviv Imo Mosumas is talking about where the child killed one of their parents? After all, chenek is, according to the sheet of Reb Shimon, a greater punishment than sayif. So says the Gemara, you're right. I acquiesce, and let's discuss a different possibility. The Gemara says, Ella, you're right. Midichsiv, a similar pasuk. The previous pasuk was Makeh Aviv. Look at this one. Makeh ish umeis mos yumas. Uchsiv, another pasuk says, O be'eva hiko biyado v'yamus. If you hit someone angrily with your hand and he died, Shma minokol hechadika kostam labmi. So the fact that the Torah had to go out of its way and said that when you hit someone, you did so and he died, what does that imply? That hitting without dying, no death. So therefore, we see that the case of Makeh Avi V'imo is really a case of Makeh Ish, and therefore you're not going to be chayiv in such a case if you're going to be chayiv for chenek not for when you kill the father, but for when you injure the father. So asks the Gemara, why do we need the pasuk of Makeh Avi V'imo and the pasuk of Makeh Ish Umeis? We need both quarter of the way down. Pei Daled Amud Beis. We need that pasuk. Kol Makeh Nefesh. Why do we need both of these psukim? Says the Gemara. If I only had the pasuk of if I hit a man and he dies, havamina ish debar mitzvah in katan lo, I might have thought that if I kill an adult, that I would be chayiv. But if I were to kill a child, Rahman al then I would not be chayiv. Therefore, kasav Rahmana kol makeh nefesh, to make sure that we know that if a person kills a katan, he's still going to be chayiv. V'i kasav Rahmana kol makeh nefesh. If I only had that pasuk, havamina afilu nefalim, even if a person were to kill a nefel, a baby who is soon to die, or afilu ben shmona, a child who was born after 8 months of gestation. Again, this is hard for us to understand. Babies are born in the 8th month of gestation all the time. That's like standard fare. In the times of the Gemara, it was an assertion that the baby would not survive. So if a person were to kill a nefel, a child who's about to die, and a baby who was born in the 8th month, where we halachically assume that that child is to die, there you're taka pater. Says the Gemara, tzriche. That's why we need both cases to teach us that you're going to be chayav for an adult and chayav for a katan, but you're not going to be chayav for killing someone who is already on his deathbed and going to die. And about a third of the way down, a little bit more, ve'ima afal gav delo avi bechabura. Maybe we should say that that a child is going to be chayav chenek for hitting their father, even if I punch my father, Rahman al but he doesn't bruise. So what's the parameter? Is it the hitting? Is the hitting the isser? Or is it hitting with a bruise only? Says the Gemara, not. If that were to be the case, why do we have a Mishnah? This Mishnah will be found a little bit later on. That there will be no Isser until, this is the next Mishnah on the top of Pehamid Beis, unless there's a bruise. So how do we understand the Havamina? You want to say that perhaps we should be chai for hitting a father even without a bruise, but we have a Mishnah that says you're chai only with a bruise. Says the Gemara, Amar Kra, Makeh Adam, Umakeh Behema. This is a hekesh. Well, let's hold on to this hekesh because we're going to question it shortly. Ma make behema ada avid b'chabura. Just like if a person hits an animal, what is the parameter for hitting an animal? That's when there's a chabura. D'chsiv ba nefesh. Af make adam ada avid chabura. So we make a hekesh between the world of behema and the world of adam. If a person's make behema, the minimum threshold where the isser kicks in is bechabura with a wound. And the same exact thing is true when a person hits a parent. If a person hits a parent and there's no chabura, so you're not a good person, you probably need help, severe help, but you will not be chayav chenek as our Mishnah indicates. That's only if a person hits and causes a chabura. So says the Gemara, Maskif Rav Yirmiyah Elamayat. If that's true, he krisha ba'avanim. Let's talk about an animal, and I overburden the animal with rocks. The capacity of the animal that I'm dealing with is 200 pounds. I put 600 pounds. I tore sinews, bones are more brittle, so maybe you can't tell, but maybe you really injured the animal. So there, there's no bruise. Are you going to tell me that you're not going to be chayav for damage? Pashut, you're going to be chayav for damaging the animal. You overburdened the animal. And now we can't walk anymore? Okay, I can't see a bruise, but you're chayav. You got to take care of that animal. So therefore, says the Gemara, if that's true, what do we see? Non-bruise with a chiyuv. It's against what we were saying. So says the Gemara, Ella, imenu inyan lenefesh behema. If the word nefesh is unnecessary by behema, because Rav Yirmiyah proved that you're chayiv even without a bruise, daha inami hikrisha ba'avonim chayiv. Because there, even if you just overburdened and hurt the animal with extra rocks, you're going to be chayiv. So therefore, we take the word nefesh. Tanehu inyan lenefesh adam, to teach us, to make sure that we know that when we are talking about a person, that the person has to actually have a bruise. Elahikesha lamali. Why do I have the hekesh above? This is the hekesh that we saw based on the Mishnah from the next page. It says the Gemara lechedatana de bechizkia. This we saw earlier in the Masechta as well. If you look on the side, you'll see over here that it was on Daf Ayin Test. On Daf Ayin Test. And there we were talking about the Bechizkiya, where we said that just like by an animal, Shogeg and Mazid, there's no difference. We made a Hekesh over there. So too by an adult, Shogeg and Mazid make no difference. Says the Gemara, that's great. Why do I need a Hekesh according to those who don't hold of Tana de Bechizkiya? Because if they don't agree that the Shogeg and Mazid by a Behema is similar to a Shogeg and Mazid by a person. So if we don't need that, then over here, I really don't need my hekesh. So says the Gemara, Ma make behema l'refuah pater, av make adam l'refuah pater. Wow, this is a whole new ballgame. Let's say a child needs to give a father a bris. A child needs, that's a mitzvah even. Let's say a child needs to give a father a shot. A child needs to put in an IV line. A child needs to do dental work, and you're causing bleeding, bloodletting. What's the deal with that? So says the Gemara, that's what this hekesh does. The hekesh that we have over here teaches us a new area of Jewish law. Not that we equate, not that we equate shogeg and mezid, nothing like that. It's just to teach us that refuah is pater. It doesn't say mutter, that it's pater. If I were to take a splinter out of my father's hand and cause him to bleed, I'd be pater. Doesn't mean it's mutter. I probably shouldn't do it. Go find somebody else. The Ibayalu, this question was raised 10 lines, 12 lines from the bottom. Ben Maushe Yakiz Dam La'aviv. Can a child be a bloodletter for his father? Rav Masna Omer v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha pashat. You're allowed to do it. What do you think? The father doesn't want you to do it? He wants you to do it. How would you want to be treated? So if you would want that your father to take, you would want your child to take your splinter out. Well, then my father would want me to take his splinter out. Pashat it's v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Similarly, Rav Dimi Barchina no Amar Maka Adam and Maka Behema Maka Behema l'Refuah Pater Maka Adam l'Refuah Pater. Very good. So therefore, we see two shitas that are mekil, and then it does say only Rav over here. David, do you have Rav? Just Rav?
I have Rav, but with a Bach.
Good. Okay.
Find the Bach.
Yeah.
Rav Papa.
Yeah. And that makes sense because Rav a moment ago quoted the famous pasuk of. Actually, it says Rav Masna in our Gemara. It was not Rav, it was Rav Masna. I totally missed that. Did I read Rav Masna when I read the Gemara? Probably. Yeah. But I thought it was Rav. Either way, it might be that it's Rav Papa. And the Gemara says, Yeah,
Papa, we know this.
yeah, that's true. Quite a few. So Rav or Rav Papa said, "Lo shavik lebre lemishkali le silo." He would not allow his child to take out a silo from his arm, which is some type of splinter. Ma'abre de Ravina lo shavak lebre lemiftach lekaf. So he wouldn't allow him to do bloodletting. Dil mechavil, because he would cause for some problems. But havale shigigas iser. It's a shogeg. Okay, it's not intentional. By Shabbos, by the way, we have this. If what you're doing is not a guaranteed outcome, it's not a guarantee that I'm going to make him bleed, and it's not my ratzon. We would call that a davar she'enim miskaven in Hilchos Shabbos. Am I allowed to bounce a ball on a wall that has a light switch? Mutter, mutter. My goal is not to hit the light switch, and my goal is not to turn off the light. I don't even want the light off. So when we have those two factors, we have davar she'enim miskaven. By parenting, we don't have that. By my care of my father, the Gemara says that v'havale shigig asisser. It's a shogig. I know you didn't intend on doing it, but you did it, so it's a shogig on nisser. Says the Gemara, ihachi, if that's true, acher nami, forget about a parent. I shouldn't be able to cause a chabura in anybody. That's a great kasha with a powerful set of implications on the Havamina side, that no one can ever do anything to anyone that would ever create a chabura. So says the Gemara, no. Acher, when it comes to a non-parent, so what type of shogeg are we dealing with? That's shigegas lav. That's talking about a shogeg on a lav. However, beno, when we're talking about a father-son, what the son is doing to his father is shigegas chenek. Now, the lumdus of this bothers me. Why would we allow for a shogeg for an isser, but not allow for a shogeg of chenek? And I don't know I didn't look into it. It just bothers me. It's not machat shel yad. If you have a needle that's used for sewing, litol ba'asakot, you can use it to remove a splinter. Lichush del machavil b'havale shigigaskila. But it's Shabbos. And on Shabbos, this is a Gemara from Maseches Shabbos, actually. Shabbos, as you can see in a couple places there, Daf Kuv Zayin and Daf Kuv Chav Beis. Why on Shabbos are you allowed to take out a splinter? After all, it's Shigigas Shabbos, and Shigigas Shabbos is Shigigas Skila. Says the Gemara Hasim Mekalkel. There you're destroying something. You're destroying even the skin. Says the Gemara, Hanicha Lamando Amr Mekalkel Potter. That's great and adorable if it's because you hold that Mekalkel should be Potter. But if you hold that Lamand Amr Chayv, if you hold the Mekalkel is going to be Chayv, Ma'ikal Meimar, then we don't understand our Gemara at all. So says the Gemara, Man Shamas Leidamr Mekalkel Bechabura Chayv. Who's the Tana who holds that when you are being Mekalkel and you're doing a Chabura that you're Chayv? That's Reb Shimon he. And as we turn to the top of Pehei Amid Aleph, we'll see a Gemara that we're all familiar with. We've seen it a dozen times. Reb Shimon, he was the one who was Ha'amar. He said, Kol Melacha She'ena Tzricha Legufa Pater Aleha. He holds that when you're dealing with the malacha she'ena tzricha legufa, you're right. I'm doing a maisa. I'm digging a hole, not for the hole, but for the dirt. That's a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa. I don't need it be'etzem for what it is. I don't need the hole. Okay, the chofer, the digging was the only way to get to the dirt, but I don't need the hole. I only care here too. I don't need the hole in the skin. I'm just helping my father to get a splinter out of. I don't need the hole. I need this to be out. So he would hold, even according to the shitas, that mekalkel bechabur is chayev, but that's only true when it's a malacha tzricha legufa. This is a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. We'll stop right here on the second line of Pehei and Beis. Mir Hashem will pick up tomorrow night. I'll try to cover as much ground as possible. Wishing you all a beautiful night.